Just as this assignment calls for, I have collected data on 3 different regions as the requirements state, and have used a trend line to analyze what these numbers and equations mean for these locations regarding climate change by the year 2100. Port Jervis, right here, these are the latitude, longitude coordinates, is my home region, and it is the closest weather or climate monitoring station that I could find with adequate data collected on the temperature patterns that were observed. Port Jervis is in western Orange County, New York, and it's mostly rural and consists of many rivers and mountains. It's valley-like in general. Looking at the trend line right here, we can say that the surface temperature of Port Jervis, New York, will continue to rise by 0.0115 each year. By 2100, using that equation, we can see that the temperatures will be about 10 degrees Celsius. However, the R2 value, if we go to this side, shows a low reliability because of its distance from 1. It is 0.312, which is pretty far from 1, and this would actually increase the odds of it not happening at that rate. Remaining at the same latitude and moving about 20 degrees along Port Jervis's longitude, we find ourselves in Russia at the Akity Climate Monitoring Station. The coordinates again. This location is also rural and mountainous with warm summers and cold, dry winters. The surface temperature changes are similar to Port Jervis. The trend line shows a surface temperature increase of 0.0182 degrees Celsius per year, and by 2100, using that equation again, the surface temperatures can be expected to be around 12 degrees Celsius. The slope or the increase is expected to be slightly higher than Port Jervis at 0.3405. However, it's still far from 1, which signifies poor reliability of the equation's accuracy. If we start back at Port Jervis and move about 31 degrees along the latitude, we end up at the climate monitoring station Ernesto Cortizos in Colombia. This location is very hot and booming with vegetation and plants most of the year, mostly tropical because of the climate and where it's located. The trend line is interesting in this one because now we are switching the hemispheres, and this one's really close to the equator actually, Colombia, and the data changes. Looking at the data, we can expect a 0.027 degrees Celsius increase each year right here. And contrary to the other 2 locations, the R2 value actually shows a greater reliability at 0.7378. So again, in this case, it's very likely that temperatures will increase at this rate every year. Comparing these locations, Akity and Port Jervis share similar surface temperature predictions for the future. Both have roughly a yearly surface increase of 0.01 degrees Celsius with a poor accuracy reliability. So this information may be true, but the likelihoods of it being false are greater. The difference is seen when we move along the longitude between Port Jervis and Ernesto Cortizos. Even looking at the data here on the screen, you can see the big difference, like how deep the slope is. The surface temperature between these two is 0.4, which is very significant because the Earth's sensitivity to temperature change. It's also important to note that the reliability of Ernesto Cortizos is much greater and likely to occur than Port Jervis. Based on this data, I will have to refute that climate change is happening in my home region. Port Jervis being my home region, if we look at the quantitative evidence here, it shows that the reliability of the yearly temperature increase of 0.0115 is low because of our R value. Our R value, again, 0.312, is far from 1. It can happen. Will it? We don't know. And if we compare all 3 of them together, all 3 stations, Akity, Port Jervis, and Ernesto Cortizos, we can see that, or we can actually refute that that temperature changes is happening. Sorry, the temperature change, the temperature changes is happening uniformly across the globe. Um, Again, Port Jervis and Acadie have poor reliability of surface temperature changes at 0.0115 and 0.0182, whereas other places like Ernesto Cortizos has a high reliability of a surface temperature increase of 0.7378 degrees Celsius. So yeah, thank you.